reasons I never doubted. Mama had and it was a glass cabinet. We didn't call it a china cabinet. It was a glass cabinet Mama had. And every year you had to take everything out of that glass cabinet. The only time of the year you could ever touch it too was things that were in it. Was that one time of year when you took everything out of it and cleaned everything and dusted it and put it all back. And there was always stories behind things. But this was the one story. My mama said, when you take this out, she said, oh yeah, now let me tell you about this. This is what Miss Lila Childs gave me when I was 6 years old. So we're talking 1930, probably 32, because it was the summer before she turned 7. 1932. And I said, when someone did, I would always have to say, yes ma'am, and what was that? She says, well, if you look, this is a well, this is an old time well, but this would be your handle, and this would be your spout where the water would come out. And she said, when I was 6 years old, I went to Bible school at Camp Creek Church. I had Bible school even way back then, girls. And that week, though, I asked Jesus into my heart. And that Sunday morning when I went to Sunday school, Miss Lila Child said, Sarah, tell me, what happened this week? And she says, well, I asked Jesus to come into my heart, and he did. She says, I'm so glad. I want to give you this because I want you to know this is water like we have here on earth, but you've drank out of the living water. Oh. This is the water that will be forever for you. I want you to always take this water, have it with you, but share it. Flow it out to everyone. Always keep that handle pumping so people will know Jesus. That's the greatest thing you can ever do, and this is what I always say, is to know Jesus and show Jesus and share Jesus. And we have the story, of course, of the woman at the well when she goes, when Jesus finds the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. And we know that she was not a righteous woman at that time when Jesus met her. She was a sinful woman. She'd had 5 husbands. She was living with a man now who was not her husband. God demanded that was a sin. That was sinful to do that. Mm-hmm. So, but yes, it was sinful, but you know what? He saved her. Amen. He was still willing to save her, regardless of what sin she was in or what sin she committed in the past. God wipes all that away from us and gives us a free life then. And in John 4:14, the latter part of the verse, we find, the water that I give you, him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. That's the greatest thing, the water of everlasting life. And we don't find it in this. Now, I'm going to bring my Bible up. But we find that living water in this. But more importantly, we find about living water not only in the Bible, but in our prayers, in our prayer life. The most wonderful thing is when, like Regina said this morning when she came into the Welcome Center and all this morning, that she's been up since 5:30 because it takes her a long time to pray. It takes her a long time to talk to God. Amen. And it does. And you think about it, a lot of times, like I went up to my daughter's and it's a 2.5 hour drive. That's the most wonderful thing. I know in the afternoons when I used to get off from work, it took me a good 50 to 60 minutes every day to get home. Well, in the afternoons, that's the most wonderful time to talk to God. Because you can talk to him and he can reveal things. And it's so funny when you're driving along, you'll see things and you're like, ooh, how about that? You know, it's things that it's funny, you see trees or you see flowers that you hadn't noticed before. But like I say, Mama would always tell us, okay, girls, don't forget, keep that well in you. Keep that well of Jesus in you. And that's what I say, Mama was funny, y'all know that. Mama was a mess. Mama was a mess.
It's okay.
But she did. She always made sure, Daddy Beth always made sure we were in church. You would see Mama, and Mama wasn't one necessarily to read the Bible with you, but you would see Mama reading her Bible. And I did, especially after I was working and would go back by Mom and Daddy's, she'd be on the couch laid up there on her pillows, but she'd be reading the Bible. Mm-hmm. And what a wonderful thing that is, and I think how wonderful that is. And that's the greatest thing, as I was talking to my daughter yesterday, it's the greatest thing you can do is let your children see you do it. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily tell them constantly, not tell them constantly, but let them see you do it. Mm-hmm. To see your mother pray, to see your mother, like I said, read her Bible, to see your mother speak of God, that is the greatest thing we can ever do for our children. And not just for our children, because as we sang the song Precious Memories, my Aunt Hattie Watson, a lot of y'all probably had her as a school teacher, and never married. Oh, she was the old maid school teacher, okay? Never married. But my Aunt Hattie Watson was such a stout believer. She and Mama Watson lived next door to us after the time I was 6 till they passed. But she too would always speak, and that was the song they sang at her funeral, because she always spoke of the precious memories that she had. And when you think about it, what's the most precious memories you have of your mother? To me, with my mother, is the times that we've talked. One other thing my mama would always tell me too is, Mama didn't get no hurry either. I mean, it didn't matter if it was something that's happened at 12 o'clock. If she wasn't ready to 15 after that was all right. They were going to wait on her as far as she was concerned. Okay? But Mama would tell us, especially when we went out to the mall, because we'd go out to the mall and go walking, and Mama would take me by the arm and say, okay now Linda, let's go strolling around the mall. But more importantly, I want you to always be ready to stroll with me over heaven.
Amen.
What a wonderful thing. And what a simple little thing when you think about it. Mama didn't make any big preaching sermon about what was going on. It's just always remember, I want you to be ready to stroll over heaven with me when we get there. And I can just see my mama now, she's waiting. Because Daddy's not going to do it. Daddy's not going to be strolling over heaven with Mama. I'm sorry. Daddy's going to be sitting on his bench. Taking everything in. But she's waiting on somebody to come up there and stroll over heaven with her. And that's what I keep telling my children and my grandchildren. I want you to be ready to stroll over heaven with me when we're ready to go.
Yes.
And if we could just do that, I will be... That's all there is. Like I say, I'm just so happy this week with Mike. And I'm so happy that my grandchildren can talk to me about God and they have that spirit. That's the biggest thing you can ever do is that your children can share God with you.
Amen.
Not just you share Him and show Him, but you can share God with Him in your experiences. I do have a bottle of water for all the moms. I know, and I would like to give out.
But there's one thing that Linda doesn't know that I want to tell y'all about. When we were doing CBYF, that's with the Church of the Brethren Youth Fellowship, when Linda and I were doing it, her mother would slip me $50 at a time to where we could support the children here. And nobody ever knew that she was giving me money, and I never told Linda. Because I never had that extra cash, but Ma Tripp would always slip me money to help support the children, always.
And I want you to send it out. I'll tell you how poor her mother was. And